Okay, this is episode 10 of the podcast. We reached double digits,
Wow.
right?
Who would have thought
Should we
we'd even
celebrate?
get this far?
Episode
Should we
10 already.
celebrate? Do you have a bottle of champagne with you? I got some water here. I guess that'll have to do.
Yeah, hydrate.
Oh,
Yeah.
water.
But yeah, this is episode 10. We've invited our friend Gordon onto the show with us because we wanted to talk about Dogecoin today and crypto in general. And this is the resident expert on crypto that I know. When I think of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, the name Gordon pops into my head, right? Same with you, right, Tony?
Yeah, definitely. He definitely knows shit coins better than us.
And
I know how to find those shit coins.
that's why
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why you're here.
Yeah, you're here because was it a month ago you told me about the Shiba Inu coin and it's mooned, so
Right,
we
yeah.
need to talk about that.
Let's talk about that real quick. You know, this Shiba Inu coin that was the big news this morning. How much did it go up by?
I think it's like 100%.
Right, and what exactly triggered this? I still don't fully understand, but I think it has to do with Chinese investors getting in on it.
Yo, I didn't look to see why it mooned. It just showed up on my news articles
Mm,
that this fake dog coin was gonna be the next Doge. So I
yeah,
went to check out the price of it and like moon, and I thought it'd be really funny because I told Tony about this a few weeks ago,
The Doge
and now
killer.
it's like 100% more.
I think since the time that you told me about it, it's actually more than 100% more. I think 100%
Wow.
is actually in the last 24 hours.
Oh, well, there you go.
So I think it's actually gone up way more than that. Um, yeah. Did you buy any of it?
Unfortunately, I didn't. Maybe the next time I find a really terrible coin, we'll just go all in.
Yeah,
Listen, by the end of this
we'll
show,
just go for it.
we're gonna identify the coins with the most meme potential for the most, growth potential.
Oh, yo, I did look into some like weird altcoins that are just like that sound really degenerate.
We're
Such
not,
as?
yeah,
Oh, like
such as.
so on Coinbase, I was just kind of looking at like the very like bottom market cap coins to see what.
That's always the best.
Yeah. And there's one called like Augur, and essentially it's just a betting app. So you pose like a question like, is this coin going to moon? Yes or no? And people place their bets on like yes or no. And it's either like double or nothing every time you place a bet.
Wait, that sounds like it has real potential.
It does. But then when I looked into it, like apparently there's like Augur version 2 already came out, but Coinbase only offers the first one. So it almost seems like it's a bait to buy the one on Coinbase.
So how do you buy the two, the more up to date one?
I think it's just on the other exchanges. So
Mm,
probably like Kraken has it. I think Kraken has more options.
okay.
I could be wrong though. I don't have Kraken.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, let's pull it back a little bit because we wanted to focus this episode on one specific coin in the beginning, at least, right? And that is Dogecoin, the coin that's been on everyone's mind past few weeks, especially because of Elon Musk's SNL appearance on Saturday. Did any of you two watch that?
Nope.
I caught most of it,
Okay.
but I kind of tuned out after a while.
And then, was that your first time watching SNL, or?
Oh yeah. Actually, I've seen clips of it before, but
Uh-huh.
first time actually sitting down to watch it.
First time realizing how awful it is.
It wasn't that bad, I thought.
You don't think so? Okay.
I didn't think so. I grew up watching shows like this in the UK, and like I thought they were so.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I caught bits and pieces of it. I caught some of the highlights, I guess. But I guess more interesting is how Dogecoin reacted, the price of Dogecoin reacted to that, which was not positively. Now, I did read some stuff beforehand saying that this was probably expected among certain people. people said that if whales were looking for a time to exit, this would have been probably the best time because you have like really high visibility with a lot of people, and if they expected people to get in, then this would be like the sell high point, so to speak. I don't know what that means for the future, long term future of this coin. Is there even a long term future for this coin? What do you guys think?
So just going back to that, like when I was looking at it and just hypothetically thinking, so like we talked about how we missed the Shiba Inu and how we missed the Dogecoin too. Like I remember like posting in the our Discord group about like, hey, like why don't I just buy some Dogecoin ahead of SNL, right?
Well, good
That was
thing
at
you
like
did
around 20 cents.
Yeah.
And I didn't. There were like a lot of stuff that I haven't done that, retrospectively would have worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my head when I was thinking about this, I actually thought about what I would have done. And and this was before SNL even started. This was like the morning of or the day before. I was thinking like I would sell before SNL. The reason is because this whole thing is building up, right, to SNL. And SNL, I just don't see it's when the risk comes to really fruition, right? It's when things get realized. And for me, like, I would just paper hand out of there, right? Like once do you know what I mean? Like it's at, let's say 60 going in, right? Sure, it can go to $1, but it could also quickly go down to like nothing, right? And I think if you feel like you've already made quite a bit of money, then you probably want to exit out early, right? Before the true risk is realized. So I can totally understand why people would sell like right before SNL starts or like during.
Let's talk about like, so what do you mean by the true risk will be realized by SNL? What is the true risk here?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what true risk. It's more so like, let's say you're betting on earnings report, right? And there's like all this hype around, the earnings are gonna be really high,
Right,
so the
right.
price really jacked up. And you can wait until the earnings report come out and see if it's what you guys predicted or if it's lower, right? Or you can just say like, okay, I'm gonna stop right here. I'm just gonna take out all the gains I've made and not take the risk of seeing the actual result, right? Which could be lower than you thought, and the whole thing comes crashing down. So that's kind of my mindset with it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like too much to lose.
Yeah, I wanted to. It's really great that you brought up that earning report comparison because it's kind of similar. It's like we're building up to this really highly anticipated date, this event, and people are getting very excited. A lot of speculation going on, and that naturally drives up the volatility of a stock. Typically, right? In this case, it's a coin, but there's no earnings report, right? There's no company behind this coin, so the risk comes from the exposure of a public figure who has previously strongly endorsed Dogecoin, right? Now, I think that's really interesting because earning reports are highly structured and they're anticipated well in advance. You know when earning reports are going to come, and they come 4 times a year. But something like this SNL appearance could realistically happen anytime, any day. Like it could happen literally every day if Elon Musk wanted to tweet something about Dogecoin, right? And so there's a much higher factor of volatility in general when it comes to tying the value of a stock or a coin based on these kind of external events that can happen much more irregularly versus something like an earnings report.
I think that's true. Or sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Gordon.
I think that's true for like something like Dogecoin, which like I don't think it has any other use, right? Except for like its spending power.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like Bitcoin, which Bitcoin at least is a store of value compared to like gold, right? And it's like really well known. It's like first in the market. Like everyone's already bought into it that it's a store of value, right? But the Dogecoin itself, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you can make as many as you want, right? So it's almost like cash, and then it doesn't have any other features. So
it's almost you can't make as much cash as you want unless you're the U.S. Fed, baby. Let's not get that twisted.
what do you mean? Like you can mine it like forever, right? So in theory,
no, I'm saying Dogecoin is actually more inflatable than cash. Like it is worse than cash in terms of that regard. Because normally you are not gonna print unlimited money unless you're the U.S. economy.
Right, exactly. So like it's really just driven by memes and like whoever wants to power it. Like
Yeah.
you wouldn't invest in it knowing that it will do something.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. I'm not trying to argue this is the case against all cryptocurrencies. I'm specifically talking about coins and assets that are fueled and powered by memes, hype, social media, celebrity figures, what have you, right?
Right.
Dogecoin is just the latest example of this. GameStop before that, right? Like Beyond Meat at one point, Space or Virgin Galactic rather. Um, Basically, the like if you just go through Wall Street Bets, you can track the history of the meme stocks they pick, and those are those are the ones that will be influenced by these kind of events, basically. Um,
Right. Right.
but yeah, let's talk about like why is this a thing and why is it so effective? Because if you invested in all of these meme stocks ever since I think probably like two years ago that Wall Street Bets started jumping on, you could probably retire if you were truly degenerate and invested all your all your assets into these stocks and these coins. You know?
Well, I heard one stat that's really crazy, which is that if you invested every single one of your stimulus checks in the US into Dogecoin at the time that they were given out, you would have $500,000.
That is insane.
Because this thing was less than a cent at the beginning of the year, right? You
that
gotta
is
remember.
ridiculous. Yes, yeah.
And it went up to like 70 cents at one point. So it did like 100x.
No,
Right?
it did
So,
like a 1,000x, right?
I mean,
Oh,
over
sorry,
the
sorry, 100x. Yeah, yeah,
horizon, it's done ridiculous amounts.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, within just the last year, I think it's like it could be a
No,
thousand
no,
X.
I think you're right. I think that's 100, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was just under a cent or maybe half a cent or something at the beginning
Right.
of the year, so maybe like 200x or something like that. And like I didn't receive any U.S. stimulus checks. I don't live in the U.S.
I didn't receive any U.S. stimulus checks. Don't look at me.
Wait, you don't get any?
I'm not a U.S. citizen. I don't get shit from Canada either, by the way. So I'm like in limbo.
Feels bad.
But was it $1,000 per check or something like that, Jack?
I
Or
think it
like
was like
1.2 or
2,000 per.
2,000?
Or the
Yeah,
first
so
one
you
was
can
2,000. I'm not sure if they were all the same amount of money, but the first one was 2,000.
Yeah, so that's pretty insane. And
Yeah.
that really goes to show you the power of these memes. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like what's driving this? I don't know, man. Like it's so interesting because if you compare this to GameStop, I think what I see is like GameStop I could understand from the perspective of being really anti-establishment, being really pissed off at the hedge funds, right? Like it almost was like emotional. It was like pulling on people's emotional heartstrings over the hatred for the hedge funds, right? The whole thing was about like kind of tearing down the hedge funds.
Mm-hmm.
Now this one though, this is like pure greed, right? There's no necessary enemy. I don't think no one's shorting Dogecoin, right?
Yep.
So this is just everyone piling on, hoping to get super rich.
Hoping to get rich off of no reason.
Elon.
Yeah, basically.
It's their belief in Elon that he'll take you to the moon.
Now that's a different
How did
topic
a
we can get
hustle
to.
on SNL, right? So going back to SNL a little bit and what Jack said about how like Elon could do this all day if he wanted to, it's like unpredictable events and stuff. And going back to what I was saying is this one was different, right? The reason why I kind of posted that thought was about like buying Dogecoin. It was like there was a defined date that was coming up. Like this man literally went on Twitter and was like, May 8th, SNL, the Doge father, right? Like he set a timeline for everybody.
Yep.
And so
He
I
knows
think
what he's doing.
so the way people are thinking, right, is like, okay, that's the date, right? And so you see this ramp up to that date, right? And then I think everyone's thinking like, okay, I got in early, right? And so for the people who are only finding out about this during SNL or just before or whatever through news outlets or whatever, right? They're gonna be the bag holders for me, right? And to me, there was a thought of like, okay, well, who's gonna truly be the bag holder? Because if you're discovering Dogecoin through SNL, you're probably not that technically sophisticated, right? And like Dogecoin is not the most obvious thing on how to buy, right? Like I think you can do it on Robinhood, but like I feel like the Robinhood, degenerates already know what's going on, right? Like I don't think they'll be falling for it. So who are you really trying to be your bag holders here, right? And in my mind, I was like, I think there's a limited selection of the population who actually buy after SNL, right?
Mhm.
And so dumping it beforehand to me just made a lot of sense. And I even thought that it could dump even an hour or so before SNL. It may not even necessarily go up
I
until
didn't I
after.
didn't line up the timings, but was it dumped before the episode air or during or?
I thought it was
I
right after he
think.
announced.
Sorry.
I thought it was right after he announced it was a hustle.
No, I think it already started crashing at the beginning of SNL.
Oh.
Yeah. So
So
let
you
me
think
just
he set it up so that you guys would be the bank holders while he sold everything?
Sorry, I'm wrong. It started crashing at around 10 our time. So it would have been half an hour into SNL. So I think it was a little bit of like the first half an hour we didn't talk about, right? I think he only talked about Dogecoin like once during that first half an hour, and I think that was probably like the big disappointment for people. They were really hoping that he was going to show us some more, and that it was going to be a big focus of the show, and it wasn't. Right, it only came up I think twice. Once when he mentioned it as a mother's gift to his mom near the beginning, but it was like a really brief mention. And then when he called it a hustle in the last like half an hour or so of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think let's elaborate slightly on that one part you brought up, which is the reason for the sell off is they want other people to be the bag holders, right? Now, why do we expect there to be bag holders? Because there's no value in this thing, right? There's just no reason for you to hold this aside from you think other people will buy it and therefore the price will increase, right? So what do you guys think about investing in these kind of assets that literally have nothing to offer to society in any meaningful way except for getting some people rich off of other people's dumb mistakes, right? It's really just a redistribution of wealth from people who FOMO in really late to people who either just lucked into buying this shit for the memes or genuinely believed there was value or like just got onto the train early enough to not be bag holders, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
know what Pierre would think. But sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I definitely play my fair share of Wall Street bet stocks, for fun, and I think it's worth like going in early if you can, like once it's like mentioned once on like Wall Street, so just buy the stock a little bit and then see if it moons, because that's what you do on Wall Street bets. Once a name, always a name.
Yeah, so the reason I'm asking this is because I've been doing this shit for like the past 2-3 years, and like for me, it's like I'll throw a very tiny amount of money into something if it looks like I see the people are actually mentioning this a lot. Like this could be maybe this could be valuable. And yeah, I have found that if you get in early enough, oftentimes what ends up happening is like people will catch on like after you, and it could be a shit tier stock. It could crash shortly after, but if you got in early enough, you would still be up from the initial pump, right? So in that sense, it did make sense. But then if you take a step back and you think about it, like, what am I like? What did I learn by investing in these companies? I learned absolutely nothing, right? I basically read a forum from some guy who I've never met, some stranger who gave me something to buy, literally told me to buy this, and without thinking, without doing any thinking of my own, I put my own money on the line and I did it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you learn about market sentiment.
So when you think about it like that, why are people willing to put their money into things that strangers tell them to in the first place?
Well, with Wall Street bets, there's at least like a proven record almost of like a lot of stocks just mooning, right?
Okay, so there's a history. No, sorry, I think you're onto something. There's a history. There's a track record. People think that there is a reasonable chance that if they just follow this random stock that someone listed, if it has enough upvotes, that there is some chance of it, some reasonable positive chance of it working out for them. They're willing to
Yeah,
bet that.
and usually at least you get some kind of D&D on Wall Street bets at least, like that gives you like
Okay,
you know, also a
real.
summary of the
Let's
stock.
just be real. Nobody actually reads those. Let's be honest, Gordon. You didn't read all the DDs. You went down. You looked for the strike price. Okay, just be honest. Like it's okay.
Not all of them,
No
but
one's
some
gonna
of them
judge
I
you.
do.
You look for the bolded strike price and the date. Okay, just be honest. It's all good.
Yo, I don't do options.
Then why are you on Wall Street bets? Why would you buy shares of these garbage companies?
I didn't have options enabled at the time. Okay. But yeah, I guess the second part just be like, gambling's an addiction. So if you
There you
already do
go.
it,
There
like,
you go. Right? There you go.
It comes down to, I think, people are just wanting to make money with as little effort as possible. Right?
Exactly. I think there's all these factors at play, right? Like people are lazy and they want to get rich quick. There's the gambling aspect. And I think one thing that we haven't touched on entirely is the community aspect. Is Wall Street Bets is like the first time where such a prominent forum of people you can talk publicly about your trades in such a manner. Like you feel like you're part of a group, right? Like the whole GME thing, a lot of it was hyped up by apes sticking together, right? Like us against them. It was a very group mentality thing that allowed it to occur in the first place. And like, if you think about it, if you gathered every retail investor in the world and they all listened to like someone like Wall Street Bets, like they were all unified in every purchase and every sell, then every stock that they pick would go up, right? Like everyone would make money. It would essentially be the world's biggest hedge fund. Actually, no, I doubt that. But you know what I mean?
Depends on how you define it, right? Like, I mean, things like BlackRock, I mean, they're not hedge funds, but they manage trillions of dollars because they're everyone's retirement funds, like Vanguard and stuff. But I think Vanguard's a co-op. But yeah, going back to, I think you were saying, this group psychology thing. Yeah, I think the difference between what happened with GameStop and Dogecoin kind of expose the underlying mentality, I guess, right? Like GameStop at least had the veneer of something kind of like righteous or like, some kind of greater goal, right? Like kind of showing people's discontentment towards the system, towards the banks, towards the hedge funds and stuff. And then Dogecoin kind of exposed that at the end of the day, everyone's here just to make some money.
Everyone's just here to make money, yeah. It's not about the hedge funds. It's not about the institutions. People are just like in it for the memes, but they're just trying to make some money. They're just trying to bite that new bag.
It didn't fully crash yet, though, right?
No, it didn't fully crash. It could definitely recover. In fact, it already did recover a bit, I think, and then it went back down again. Oh, did you guys hear? Like, didn't Elon announce something about one of the trips to Mars on SpaceX being purchasable with Dogecoin?
I think it was some company paid in Dogecoin. So I have the article actually linked in the show note.
Okay.
I shared with you guys. But I think some company paid for SpaceX to send something to the moon or something with Dogecoin, for sending a satellite.
Okay, I think I saw a different article, something about like you can purchase the tickets on like you can purchase the seat on that flight to Mars with Dogecoin, like one of the flights, and it's gonna be like Dogecoin themed or something like that rocket. I don't know.
So that's just Elon accepting Dogecoin as payments?
Yeah, basically, which has already been done, I think, by some other institutions. So it's not the first of its kind. But I think...
Yeah, I think one thing... Sorry, I think one thing I want to bring up is sort of like, do you guys think that the rest of the crypto space? Because if we think about it, like Dogecoin started off as a joke, right? And then the guy who created it left the crypto community because he said it was toxic, right? With all these people trying to make a buck. and he had originally created this thing to satirize like Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and then it became huge, right? And people caught on to it. So does that going up actually sort of detract from the rest of the crypto space, right? By saying that, I think to an outsider, especially, they look at it and they think like, okay, everything's like Doge, then, right? Like, Doge is being pumped. Bitcoin's probably the same thing. Ethereum's the same thing, and they might not, they might just turn away from the whole thing.
I think as a pump and dump, if it actually gets like fully dumped all the way down, it definitely would deter people from investing into like the altcoins. I think, or like even looking into like the other altcoins and see like what projects they do, because Dogecoin doesn't do anything, right? So if it drops, like it just be a huge deterrent. Yeah.
I think it definitely can have that kind of negative impact, Tony. But I also think because there is somewhat of a barrier to entry when it comes to crypto, like people who are aware of crypto and how to invest in it, you already touched on this earlier before, but they they probably have done enough research to realize at the very least what Bitcoin and Ethereum is, right? I can't imagine you find like learning about cryptocurrency without learning about Bitcoin. And I think from that perspective, they'll be more less less ignorant of the entire crypto space and be aware that hey, like there are some meme coins out there, but there should be at the very least be one or like a few legit ones, you know. And I think that's the main value of Bitcoin that you touched on before, right? Like that first to market, the brand value is strong, like people trust it, and it's gonna be the first coin you learn about probably when it comes to crypto. But yeah, it can definitely have that effect on at least casual investors, like people who. The thing is, I think it's gonna have that effect on people who weren't gonna get into crypto anyways. I think they're gonna look at it and be like, hey, see, like this is why it's not a good idea to get into crypto, right? Because I think people who are genuinely interested would have discovered Bitcoin and Ethereum.
I think with TikTok too, like I heard a lot of the what do you call those influencers, the people that make like crypto TikToks.
TikTok.
Ooh,
You
They're
crypto.
just
all
coined a
like
new term. Nice.
Yeah.
yeah, maybe. Anyways, I heard they're all like pump and dumps. Like they just get all their followers to like pump it into like a random crypto, and then like they just sell, and it's just like a huge trap. So like don't look at those.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what this topic is about, right? The power of memes and hype and social media in pumping these coins. Wall Street Bets for a while was basically a pump and dump scheme. Um, like I mean, even now it is, right? But like not, you know what I mean, right? Like it's when we describe it, like there was plenty of shit companies that caught on to Wall Street Bets um, attention that they either knew these companies were shit and it's like we're doing it for the memes, or they just turn out to be shit afterwards. But you can see a lot of patterns of like similar to pump and dumps, where you see a highly upvoted DD post about a company and it's gonna start rising up because people start buying it, and then within the next week it crashes. And yeah, same thing with the influencers on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, right? There's such a platform now for anybody out there to have a voice. And the question I asked earlier, like why do people trust other people with their money, right? Like why do people pick stocks based on that? I think getting into this habit of not doing your own research and buying something off a gamble based on what someone else said. Wall Street Bets, you see the appeal. It's a kind of a group thing, right? But there are plenty of people who get their stock advice from a single entity, a single person on YouTube or TikTok, whatever. And it's so much easier for them to fall for a pump and dump that way, right? Like that person can just recommend anything they want with no verification of its credibility, because there's no like millions of users that can upvote or downvote you or call you out on your bullshit, right? And so I think it can lead to this dangerous behavior where people especially younger people, because that's the main demographic on TikTok, they're not thinking for themselves and they're throwing away their money hoping to make a quick buck, and they lose it all to these influencers or whatever.
Right. And I think another part that plays into it is just like probably just financial literacy, right? Like it's pretty daunting to learn, like even in stocks, just to research a company and do like a full D&D on it. Looking at like like maybe like a SWOT analysis of the company and like the like the industry as a whole, like where the company can go. Like it's pretty daunting to just pick all that up. Even looking at the financials is like not the easiest thing, right? Like it takes like courses to like actually like even get good at it.
Dude, that's why you got a CPA, right, Gordon?
That doesn't mean I'm good at it. But and then same thing with crypto. I find crypto even harder to research, to be honest. And like all the news are speculative, and
Right.
like proof of work, proof of stake. Like, that stuff just like blows over my head.
Oh, don't worry. I literally wrote that code and it still blows over my head.
So yeah, it's just like easier sometimes to like watch a YouTuber who does like technical analysis and see like kind of like the advice they give you, and some people are just too lazy to see what other YouTubers are saying to like maybe like at least match the data. But you also never know if like other YouTubers just watch each other and then say the same thing, so that everyone like gets baited into like this pump and dump.
Yeah, so that was kind of what I was trying to get at, is ultimately like how do you verify the information that you're seeing? Like how do you fact check this YouTuber? Um, if you're somewhat in this space trying to learn more about it.
Right. So if they at least show you like where they're getting their sources from, like if there's an upcoming event, then you should be able to find that, right? Or you have all the cryptos, they have their own websites that you can actually go onto to see like what it is that their project is doing. I think that can help. And then in terms of just technical analysis on that stuff, like I don't know if you have the time to learn that, but that stuff is pretty hard.
Technical analysis, I don't know if you know, but Wall Street Bets loves to meme the hell out of technical analysis. They think it's just like autistic people drawing lines on a chart until there's a pattern.
That's Wall Street Bets, right?
No, I know. Yeah, I don't know enough about technical analysis. I know like resistances and moving averages and stuff, but I don't know how to apply them to anything. I just like the stock. So,
Sure.
yeah, I think so. I guess what I was trying to get at is we live in this world, this age where there's so much information available to us, right? At the same time, we can choose to also give out information to other people. We can broadcast our own ideas to others, right? And in that sense, we can all appear to be experts to somebody. It doesn't take that much effort to do some research, be well spoken, and come off as an authority figure on a subject, even if you don't know much about it. And I actually have a real life example because I know someone personally who wrote a DD post on Wall Street Bets about GME, and it got over 30,000 upvotes. And he's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's one of the most troll people I know, actually. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's easy to fall into a false sense of confidence and security when you trust the opinion of someone else on YouTube or Reddit or somewhere that you're used to getting your information. But in reality, they're just like you and me. They're just random people who are doing this research on their free time, formulating their own opinions. The only difference is they're telling you about it, and so you listen to them, and they could be completely wrong, and no one knows. But enough people listen to them, then they'd be right. It actually doesn't matter. Like, if you have enough of a platform, you can really say anything and make a profit off it when it comes to the market. I think that's the thing that's so mind-blowing to me. It's like this whole thing with Dogecoin. there was absolutely no reason to buy into this, unless you were in it solely to try to make a profit, and you can do that with things like TikTok, which is how it initially blew up. I think um, in
Last
20
year.
yeah 2020, right? July 2020. So yeah, like it's just a crazy time to me, that we live in. Personally, I feel like.
Yeah, okay, so two thoughts on what you just said. And I'll start off with a more specific one and then the more general one, which I think is a really cool topic to talk about. So the first point is sort of like you mentioned, like, who is the bag holder, right? And I don't even know right now, like, who is the bag holder? Like, who are these quote unquote dumb people that are following us, right? In a way, like when I think about, for example, buying into Dogecoin early or buying into GameStop early or whatever, right? Like, I'm not the most informed person, so who are these people that are even dumber than me, right? That's something that I haven't wrapped my head around. I think it's just maybe I underestimate where we are, considering that like we are all college educated, like fairly educated, I would say, right? And that there is a large swath of people who are not even that, and we hang out in groups that are quite educated. So I think it's hard, sometimes easy for us to overlook those people. In fact, I live uh, in like in an area that's not rich or anything, right? So like a lot of my neighbors, I've realized, aren't very educated. They work these blue collar jobs, and like when you talk to them, there's a complete different culture and stuff, right? So I think I'm starting to realize that a little bit maybe. But I think that's something important to keep in mind, right? Is like who are these people behind us? Because I think it sets the stage for like who your victims are in a way, and also like how much profit do you think you will be able to make, right? Is like it's fully dependent on the volume of people behind you, right, on these type of things. And
Yeah.
then the other point I think I was going to talk about, and I think it's a really cool topic, is this idea of uh there is so much information and people are following like the whole TikTok thing. I don't understand, and maybe that's just because I'm too old. Like I never really got into TikTok, right? My brother probably knows much more about that, but it's just like unfathomable to me that people would take advice from TikTok influencers, right? Or like for the people who can see it for what it is, that is a pump and dump, or like can see it as like a momentum thing, like a greater fools thing, right? Like at least they know what's going on. But it's unfathomable for me to think that there are people out there who truly believe there is anything fundamental to this, and I think that is a bit of a problem that's happening. And then with regards to like how to analyze that information, right? Like there's a great example of that, right? Like, I was looking at Coursera. I've been using Coursera for a long time. And I'm like, yeah, Coursera is a great company. I was like, I don't really know how to do valuations, but whatever. And then what is it now? Like it's gone down 40% since I bought it, right? And some of you guys ate into it with me.
Dude, don't worry, bro. We're
I
in the
feel
same
bad for you
boat,
guys.
baby.
We
I
we
feel
had
bad
that
for you
chat and we said bye, right?
I believe I gave the bear case, and I still bought in the end. So
Yeah, I was like, jackpot, it's time.
I believe I spent that whole time giving the bear case on this, and I was like, you know what? I'll buy it. You got me, dude.
And then, the funny thing is, like, it was completely hedged out by my game crypto. Is this diversification? Is this what diversification
that
truly
that
looks
is
like?
diversification. If your portfolio
Yeah.
is
You
red these
ate into a
days,
bunch of things you don't
if
understand.
your portfolio is red in the last few days, it's time to diversify out of tech and into other things. But
But yeah, I think kind of
super
goes to show
agree.
just how difficult it actually is. And afterwards, I started trying to like learn about valuation.
Right.
I didn't get too far into that because like I'm just so busy with school and everything else, right? But yeah, so for your everyday folk that's investing and stuff, and they're going to like GameStop and Dogecoin and stuff, it's definitely really risky. And I wonder if it has to do with this whole idea of like you mentioned in the beginning, people not having that much trust in institutions anymore and in people who give them advice, right? like your financial advisor is supposed to give you advice on what to do, right? That's supposed to be in your best interest. But I think historically that hasn't been true because they have so many conflicts of interest. So they're trying to like shill their company's product onto you. I talked to a financial advisor about less than a year ago. Oh, actually, maybe it was a year ago at a friend's birthday party, and I was asking him about questions like this, and he was like, "Yeah, like we actually have a quota to meet on like selling certain products, right, from our company." I'm like, "Yeah, that's kind of what I thought," and that's really screwed up,
That's a
right?
huge conflict of interest.
So I can totally see why people are so fed up with it, and they just want to go strike out on their own. You know, when people talk about like how GameStop has like no fundamentals, we're like, okay, well the hedge funds have no fundamentals either, right? They just go with momentum, they drive momentum. Like, did you see that video of Kramer
Which one?
on his website
Yeah, there's many.
talking about? Sorry.
There's many
There's
videos of it.
there's a few.
Oh, I think there's a specific one. This was like from years ago when he, I think, just quit from the hedge fund business, and he was talking on his own website, like doing this interview, and he was telling the interviewer exactly what hedge funds do, which is like you're saying like, oh, you see your numbers are down, it's near the end of the year, you want your numbers to look good, so yeah, you start like, basically pumping things up, right? You like send these like buy orders in early, you pump the price up a little bit, you go on CNBC and you tell people like, hey, look, like this thing's great, and everyone buys in, and then you sell out, and now you make your numbers look better. Like when you see things like that, then you start losing faith.
Basically,
right?
it's like you realize that hedge funds have been playing this game this whole time, too. Right? It's not like a
Yeah,
new
and I think
phenomenon.
to bring a full circle back, right? Like I think that's why when I first looked into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, well, not the first time, but this year when I looked into it, it was like it was during GameStop, because I thought, okay, this is a great sign that people are losing faith in the system, right? And when that happens, is probably going to see like a boost, right? Because it's what we talked about at the very beginning. Well, actually, we talked about this before we started recording, but it's about the idea of a trustless system. You trust the technology, right? You don't have to trust the people. You just have to trust the technology.
Right.
And that seems to be what we're coming down to now, is like people are losing faith in the system. They're losing faith in each other. And so people are turning towards a system that does not rely on trust.
So, I definitely agree with all of that, but I think there are also some other factors at play. Um, Mainly because I think a lot of the newer people getting into crypto these days are not looking at it from the technology perspective. They're not thinking about how attractive this idea of a decentralized financial system is. I think they're kind of in that boat of I want to make a quick buck, and this is what people are talking about right now. Let me get in on that, right? And so in that vein, that's why Dogecoin is pumping up like crazy, and not like Bitcoin and Ethereum are also rising, but not to the level of Dogecoin, because people think Dogecoin is the one that's gonna pump the most, right? Which obviously doesn't make sense if you're interested in this future of decentralization. Um, and I think a large part of it has to do with everything you said, but I think what is leading to all that is just social media, right? Um, like social media ended up giving a platform to everyday people, so that anybody could have a voice and be able to influence people on things like this. And I think over time, like you mentioned, how people are started losing faith in their financial advisors, for example. Over time, people realize you can find people who appear to be smart financially offering advice on YouTube for free or whatever. Why would you pay somebody at a bank, right? This person has a lot of followers, like that's basically like real time reviews, right? His channel has a lot of views. That's a good sign. He seems relatable enough, He calls me part of his gang, his subscriber gang, right? Like I'm gonna listen to this guy, okay? And so you said you didn't understand why TikTok influencers or like people listen to them or whatever keep in mind like these influencers are not like they're not like skimpy Instagram models that like dance to a song or whatever. Like they appear to be very intelligent. Like they're dressed up in business casual and they're like presenting to you like information in a very organized way. And so it comes off as a very genuine like smart or advice kind of channel kind of a page, right? So um, that's how people listen to them. And remember, you are allowed to. I don't know if you're legally allowed. Okay, I'm sure you are, but you're allowed to own stock when you're you're allowed to own stock when you're under 18. So I think the vast majority of people getting in through TikTok especially are just teenagers and little kids, right? Who honestly just they're not thinking about the long term future of blockchain and cryptocurrency and decentralization. They want to be part of the trend, right? This whole thing, if you think about it, all these meme coins and companies, what are they now? They're essentially just viral trends now at this point, right? Like, remember the back in the days like Gangnam Style and Harlem Shake? Like
Yep.
I have the same kind of feeling from when these companies explode and get talked about as when those things were huge. Like everywhere people start talking about it. People who have never mentioned investing in their lives start asking about it, and it's like it's just something like you have to be a part of. Like you either know and you're in the know, or you're ignorant and you're not. And people want to be in the know. People want to fit in. People want to be part of the latest trend. So this is the new thing. It's not dancing for a video anymore. It's putting your money into this next thing that's gonna move. Um, that's what I think, and I don't. It's probably gonna stay like this for a little while, just because now there's like real money at play. There's so much exposure and coverage because people can see that people can make millions off this. Like that's what's getting headlines. So I can see this being the trend for a little while, until maybe when people get bored or people realize like, hey, I'm not gonna make money off of these stupid things. Like if people start losing their money one too many times. But that's what I'm feeling like in the sense of right now is like social media trends and investing have kind of become kind of started going hand in hand, and you can see how they synergize really well in these cases. Um, it's like it's almost like giving a like you're assembling all these different people into a collective when you give them a common thing to jump onto, right? And in that sense, you're almost operating like a unified hedge fund, except you don't have the tools they have or the resources or the smart people or the after hours trading or what have you, but you're able to kind of move markets in a similar fashion at times, and that's would have never been possible without, I think, social media.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting take. That social media is playing a big part on investing for like kids and teenagers. Because I think I do have TikTok and sometimes I look at the crypto stuff. I think there is like a really popular kid that's only like 12 that always like tells you what he's investing in, but he doesn't tell you why. So yeah, it's definitely like a thing these days. If all his followers are just like kids, right?
I have read comments on Wall Street Bets. Now I don't know if they're like factual or not, but people are like, yeah, like this guy was like, I'm in middle school and all my friends are like they're not playing Fortnite, they're just investing now. Like they're just on their Robin Hoods. And I'm like this is the new thing, I guess, like this is what's trendy now. This is what's trendy currently in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I've kind of forgotten about the kids. Like, it's like I guess I don't really know the demographic. I thought the demographic was really more around our age.
I think
Um,
so. I think for Dogecoin, I wouldn't be surprised if the demographic would lean younger, just because I mean, you can see the appeal of jumping onto a really cheap meme coin for kids, right? Um, Maybe for people who got into Bitcoin, Ethereum, they'd be more serious about the technology, so I could see them leaning a bit older.
yeah, that's even sadder now to think that the bag holders are the kids.
No, what's gonna be sad is if the bag holder is you and the kid made a profit off of you. Which I
That's pretty
guarantee it
actually more
will happen
accurate.
at least to some people. So.
That's pretty accurate. I'm thinking of buying Shiba Inu right now.
It's
Dude,
gotta get to where Doge is, right?
if you just heard about it, it's too late, Boomer. All the Zoomers already jumped in months ago.
Don't worry, I linked you another dog coin. We can go look at that later.
Did you?
You did? Okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah,
Let me
it's like
put $1,000 in
Akina Inu or something like that.
Oh my.
that. That's crazy.
But
Many thoughts.
yeah, I think I don't have much else to say in terms of the meme coins aspect. I think that's pretty much all I want to say, especially with the social media stuff. Do you guys have any more thoughts on meme stocks, meme coins, what it means for retail investing in the future? Does it make sense to do DD, or does it just make sense to look at the top posts on Wall Street Bets and put your money in there? What's going to be more profitable? We can do an A/B test and try it out.
I think it's always worth to at least throw some into like a meme coin, provided you're not chasing like a pump, right? But yeah,
Wait,
a
but
small portion.
isn't that the
Portfolio.
only reason you would put money into a meme coin, because you're hoping for a pump?
Not if you're already pumped, right? Like Doge right now.
You
Like
don't think chasing a
No,
pump.
right.
You
So
want to be part of the pump.
like, so therefore you. Oh, never mind. I get it. Oh, okay. Chasing a pump.
You want
Like,
the pump to chase you.
yeah. Okay, I get
you
it.
want to get in there like early.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when I was looking at Dogecoin, it was only like 7 cents.
Right.
Well, I was too late to figure out how to buy it. Now I forget my regret.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you can't win them all.
Like I think like the one thing that kind of ties it the one thing that kind of ties it together for me is this idea of trust, right? I think that's like an overarching big topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Jack, we actually talked about this at one of the very earliest episodes. It was about kind of trust, and it was kind of about independence, right? The whole idea of like financial independence, I think, partly structures around not trusting others, or at least I brought that up at one point. And the idea I used was the idea of like information asymmetry, right? Whenever you rely on someone else to do something for you, you have the potential to get scammed. Right? They're always taking a profit off you, but sometimes you just straight up get scammed, right? You go to a car dealership, like a automobile shop, right? Auto shop for like a workup. There's so many horror stories around that, right? Like people would say like, they were getting their tires rotated, never happened, right? Things like that, like oil change or whatever, and they just make shit up for you to pay for. And I think about it from the context of medicine too, right? And like there's definitely a lot of that in the US, right? Like where it's such a for-profit system, like that people end up doing shady shit. Like recently I was listening to an interview with a what's called a Mohs surgeon. Like he's a dermatology surgeon basically. He removes skin cancers. And what they do is they kind of go by layers. So they take one layer off, they look at it under a microscope, see if any cancer cells. If the margins are clear, if there are no cancer cells in the margin, that means, they got all the cancer. If they didn't, they go back and they cut out a little bit more, right? And you get reimbursed for how many steps you take. So some people literally take an unnecessary step to get paid more.
Yikes.
Right? And what they're doing is they're just cutting a bit more of your face off, right? To get paid a couple $1,000 extra or whatever it is, right?
Oh my goodness.
And that's pretty nuts, right? Or the idea of I was reading this book and like this doc was describing how this group would go to this church. I think it was a black church or something, right? And they would set up shop and they would say like, "Hey, look, guys, like, you should get your veins checked because so many people have their like claudication, which is like kind of just like plaque build up in your veins, right? So they narrows and stuff, and they're like, oh, see, like, and they do all these testing. They say like, oh, see, this is so bad. We should go and do this procedure to strip the vein or whatever, right? When it's completely unnecessary, right? And so in a society where I think there's so much of that going on, right? Where you have so much information asymmetry, because to build up a society, you need trust, right? Like that's the underlying fabric of any society is trust. And once you lose that trust, the whole thing falls apart. And maybe that's what we're seeing right now, right? Is like there's so much distrust, right? You mentioned earlier, like distrust of the institutions and stuff. That's partly driving all of this. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I just want to talk about trust a little bit in a society and like how that works and if there's even a future for it. Like in my mind, like my life is kind of like, I might as well move to my own piece of land, grow my own grow my own food, build my own house, have my own like completely off the grid, have your own system, right? That's seems to be like the only way to truly have mastery over your life anymore. To be confident in what you're eating, confident in your house that's not gonna burn down. You don't have shitty neighbors and whatever, right? Any thoughts?
I mean, I think that's definitely the extreme solution to that problem. Um, First of all, it really depends on how much you value the concept of that total mastery over your life. Because I think some people are actually just okay with knowing that they're getting a little scammed, but they're paying for the convenience of not having to do something for themselves, right? Like I'm sure people know that the car dealership or the car the auto shop is a scam, but they don't want to learn how to fix the car themselves, or they just don't have the time to, right? So um, I think generally like people want to pay for convenience, um, and over time, progressively, I think society as a society we get lazier and lazier because generally the technology that comes out aims to simplify things in our lives. I also think just people have like less of a hardworking mentality in general. Like at least compared to I think our parents' generation, I feel like they had it pretty rough, and in response, they worked really hard to take care of us growing up. A lot of them, at least, and it makes it so like our generation is a little softer. And I hate to sound like a boomer because I feel like that's what I sound like right now, but I feel like the whole talks of like 4 day work weeks, like that's something that I don't think would have ever been brought up back in the 60s, 70s, right? But millennials are like really, really pushing for this 4 day work week because they just don't want to work an extra day. Um,
Yeah, well, what about the concept of like, we talked before about like
UBI.
early retirement, like fire,
Oh,
right?
fire. Yeah, you
And
just don't want to
like
work
all
as
of these
long.
concepts revolve around basically not working as much,
Right,
right?
like being a little lazier, but also, in your case, trying to achieve freedom over your life, right? Not being dependent on
Mhm.
a corporation to pay you or whatever. Um,
Yeah, and like honestly, that's kind of where I'm getting this. So, um, the reason I'm talking about this and having total mastery over your life is not really around the idea of, I guess, like, being swindled, but more so around the idea of like specialization and how work has changed. And I guess we're delving into a completely different topic, but like the whole idea of like the assembly line method of labor, right? Which probably sound like Marx right now, right? But like that took away people's really enjoyment and ownership over their work, right? Like you talked about this as a software engineer, right? Like you don't really have that much control over the projects you work on, and your higher ups come in, they're like, nope, we don't want this, right? And then next day, Jeff's like, yo, like, why can't I do this, right? And boom, it's like top of your priority list, and you're just kind of like being dragged along everywhere, and you
yes.
only see one aspect of that work, right? You don't get to. I don't know how it is in software engineering, but I think a lot of times you don't get to fully enjoy the full fruit of your labor, and also it creates so much monotony in your work, right? And so what I'm getting at is sort of like the idea of having total control of your life is sort of even where it introduces more variety into the work that you do, and hopefully offers more satisfaction for the things that you do, right? Like even though it might be more convenient to pay someone to fix your car or whatever, right? Like being able to do that yourself, I think brings a certain level of satisfaction. You get to see the whole process from start to beginning. You don't have to worry about someone else doing something, like shady or whatever, right? I think, yeah, I think I'm approaching it from like kind of two different perspectives, right? Like there's the trust issue, and there's also like the idea of how work in a way, it's like working for yourself versus working for someone else.
I think two different perspectives that are both equally influential every time you make a decision. Like, do I want to do this myself or do I want to pay someone else to do it? Like, does my trust in someone else doing this outweigh my, time or laziness or whatever? So I think it varies on the task and the person and just even the day, right? Like sometimes you might just be too busy to do something, but if you had the time, you want to do it yourself. But going back to trust specifically, you mentioned that you feel like as a society we're trending towards less trust in institutions, right? And I think that is true to a degree, but I would argue that people people think that they don't trust certain things, but I think at the same time they are placing their trust more than ever on things that they do believe are accurate or are trustworthy. Um, what I mean by that is like um, liberal people following, well, pretty much almost all like social media or like news outlets, and or like conservatives following Fox News. Both sides would argue that whatever they're following is the source of truth, and I would say they want to do a lot of research to see if the news they're digesting is actually factually accurate. And the truth is, neither side is. They're playing the same game here, just on opposite spectrums.
I think Jeff was telling me about this. It's like called like echo chamber, where like you
Mm-hmm.
just hang out with people who have like the same thought as you, and like you have an idea and they like support you, you support their idea, and you just kind of get yourself brainwashed into like just this one train of thought.
So have you seen that the documentary The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
I didn't.
So yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it talks about.
So you should watch that and then watch our podcast about
It's like
that.
episode 2, I think.
Okay,
But
shameless plugs right
yeah,
now.
so that's exactly what it was about how social media, specifically the power of the feed, right? Your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed or your TikTok feed. The machine learning algorithm back there is so smart that it only takes a few videos before like it finds out about your interests, and it's really easy for you to go down the rabbit hole and only see the types of videos about a certain subject, right? Like if you were into conspiracy theories, you would only see conspiracy theory TikToks or YouTube videos, and you might start thinking like the world thinks this way, or a large portion of the world thinks this way, and it's okay to think this way, and it validates your belief, and that's how you get flat earthers or COVID deniers or uh, I don't, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, like the thing is, like the same thing even plays out. We think is true, right? Like we could be an advocate for
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Oh yeah, we
We're
definitely are.
it's so crazy to think about. Like the whole idea is like, yeah, like everything is built on top of trust. And so like even when we think we know what's going on with like science and whatever, right? Like truly we we're taking someone else's word for it, right? We're taking the word of the publisher, taking the whoever wrote the article and whatever. And like a lot of these articles are false too, right? Like there's that whole thing I told you about, like I think this thing called Surgisphere or something, this company that literally published like I think the hydroxychloroquine article in like the New England Journal or the Lancet, I think.
Hmm.
And it turns out to like
Pretty much.
be like a fabrication
Yeah.
in like the number one or number two medical journal. That's kind of unacceptable.
Yeah. That's
Right.
that's
And
not
so
acceptable.
yeah, that's kind of what I mean by like the breakdown of trust too, right? It's just like it's everything. It's science, it's finance, it's like all the services you get, right? Like how much can you trust like your internet provider? How much can you trust the websites that you use? How much can you trust like the restaurant or whatever you're getting your food from, even, right? It seems like such a big. It seems like the underlying uh, engine, of any society, and it's something that I think we don't pay too much attention to. But it drives all these things, and maybe the fact that things are breaking down shows just how fragile um, all these like societies and like civilizations like really built on top of. And anyways, I think we're pretty much done talking about Doge. So I think what we'll say is that like, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we say like, this is the end of the episode, and you know how Jack, how we normally talk after, and we're like, oh my god, this is so good, like we should have recorded whatever, right? We can say this is the end of that episode, and we just keep talking, as if we stop recording, but we don't have to stop recording. And depending on the quality of what we say afterwards and how publishable it is, we'll decide how we'll publish it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think we have reached the end of all we can talk about regarding Doge and just meme stocks and coins in general. Anything else you want to add, Gordon?
Nope. I think that's it from my side.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's the end of the episode. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I mean we can just keep talking. What was the thing right before that? Just the foundation of trust.
Tony moving to the wilderness.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, do you know that character?
Dude, I keep on talking. Like, I feel like every episode I bring it back. I'm gonna build like my own community. I'm gonna commune. Like,
Boy, do I have a TikTok for you?
Dude, I remember a
shit,
Planet
I feel
Money
like-
episode about one of these communes. Like this, like really charismatic, super smart guy created a community, and he like normally when you hear about these communes, they're filled with like low lives or like just like like kind of like I don't know, not so smart people, like uneducated people. But this guy was like really charismatic, and he managed to get like a bunch of like really high performing like STEM people or doctors and whatever, and they were able to like actually run businesses and be self sufficient. But at the same time, it was a giant like orgy. Like anybody could have sex with anybody else.
Okay, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I don't know why all those topics.
I think you know why, Tony. There's only so much stuff you can do to entertain yourselves when you're isolated from society. Okay, you're not watching the latest episode of the. No.
Don't call Tony out like that.
You,
secret desire.
What?
you of any new show. That's the point. You don't know what's out there. You ain't getting HBO, bro.
They're their own HBO.
You mean their own Pornhub? But yeah, hit me up with an invite once you set that up. Have to check it out.
No, man. We don't allow sexual deviance.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to take my business elsewhere. What was I
it's
gonna
just
say?
like this idea. It's just sorry, man. Getting the hiccups now.
Oh, I think I was gonna say like I don't know if the trust has been that eroded. I feel like a lot of it is the media really, really making things appear worse than it is. Like I think right now people are very dissatisfied with the government specifically, but I don't think people are close to like saying this is like society can't be trusted anymore. I think if anything, people are very, very reliant on the system.
Yeah, I think people have become very reliant on the system.
Because I think the
it's just
system
like-
gets more and more comfortable, as time goes on.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, I'm getting hiccups. It's like really annoying.
No worries. So like it's part of the episode,
But what was I gonna? Oh my god, what I was gonna say? Is that like, So yeah, so the system has gotten more and more. The problem is, I think, comfort is not necessarily like the end all be all in life, right? So for me, I actually think you require. Well, like I think everybody like believes this. The reason is that life requires a certain level of stimulation, right?
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people get stimulation off of like entertainment now, but it's not. In the end, I don't think it's like the most fulfilling type of stimulation that you can get, right? And so I think a system built on comfort only goes so far. At least that's how I think. Like I find more enjoyment out of like making my own like restaurant level food, for example, right, than actually eating out. Or like fixing something myself in the house or in the car, than paying someone else to do it. Like I just find it much more fulfilling.
Yeah, so I'm not arguing against that, but I think like people in general are more like, especially again, I'm bringing it back to social media, but a lot of times like people are expected to go to a restaurant because of the vibe, right? Like of the experience, you know, because you can post
Mhm.
about it and your friends will say, "Wow, like look at this couple," you
I
know.
don't know. I don't do that. Like, so
No,
I don't
I know
really.
you don't do that, but I'm saying people do that. Like enough people do that that I can tell you it's more common than otherwise.
Do you remember back in the day when like I think Instagram was first becoming big? Like there were all these like videos making people with pictures of their food.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever happened to that, man? Whatever happened?
The thing is, like,
Still a thing?
Sorry?
Isn't that still a thing?
Yeah, no, but the thing is they were making fun of these people. But this trend still continued, right? Like I thought that like, oh yeah, this is a stupid ass trend, it's gonna die out, picture of their foods and stuff, but it didn't, right?
because
Like
it.
you were just saying.
Well, the simple reason is because it synergizes too well with the system. If you have people posting good food from a restaurant, that person is doing free advertising for this restaurant, right? So then more people will come and
This
spend their
reminds
money
me,
in it, huh?
yeah, this reminds me of when we were in New York. Do you remember that
The
and I think like there was like some deal or something, but like they forced you like post a comment
oh,
on or
the
something.
Yelp review or something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, dude, I was just like, oh my god, like we're being held hostage here to like post a review so we can
Okay,
eat.
but we weren't because they were offering us a free complimentary something if we did that, right? So it's like it's not like
Yeah,
we had to do it.
honestly, I felt like it kind of took away from the enjoyment.
Really? I mean,
Make a
Yeah,
post.
like I don't know. I don't think the honestly that type of thing doesn't really bother me. Like I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, free food, I'll take it. You know?
maybe because their soup was hella salty.
Oh, I mean
They
that
enjoy it then.
then you would have enjoyed it regardless, right? Like that's just the problem with the food.
Yeah. Don't blame social media for that.
But yeah, I think so I think your experience is not necessarily indicative of the general population, but I think it's something like I
Yeah,
want to
definitely it's not. I feel like I'm definitely out.
like I want to work towards that as well, like you know, more independence, especially like not everything, but I want to do more DIY stuff absolutely when I can, right? It's
Oh, I
just
see, Jeff. You are planning on joining the commune, eh?
I mean it depends on, you know, the number of factors. We'll be in touch, but you know, I think for me it's like I don't want to do everything myself. It's like specifically things I would find interesting or enjoy. Like I would love to do like a woodworking project like once I own a home, but I don't know. Like I've never been amazing or like super passionate about cooking. It's something I want to be, but I'm just not. I don't get like that dopamine hit when I make a good meal. I get satisfied when I'm full. That's I think I'm a very practical eater, so I don't go out of my way to like make fancy food. I just try to have a balanced meal when I cook. So I think, you know, like in that regard, if I'm trying to have like a fancy like meal that I would never go out of my way to cook normally, I would go to a restaurant for that.
Yeah, I'll tell you that. Like recently, I made some fried chicken, and like it was literally the best fried chicken ever. Like
Oh, you know
better than.
what? Actually, same here. But it was only because you gotta control like how tender it becomes. It was like just so juicy. But
Yeah, and like seasoning and everything.
like
Yeah,
that's something easy to make. I can prepare that in like 5 minutes and put it in an air fryer.
I make pho at home. I make
Pho's cool. I would want to try to make pho one day.
yeah.
So like I think like, you know, there is some appeal, but it's like it's not universal. Like I wouldn't do it all the time. I think that's the difference.
It's like a hobby, right?
Yeah.
A hobby or not.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want it to be my only option, but I do want to make it the default. You know?
Yeah, I think part of the thing is also like the calculation on like how much money you save and stuff. Like if you, for example, think about financial independence, right? And like the 4% rule, then like every dollar you spend all of a sudden becomes $25 that you need to save, right? It's like a really strong incentive to like cut down on costs, right? Because you're
Yeah,
like,
it is,
okay,
but that's not everyone wants to live like that, right? That's one specific way of living. Like some people would rather spend that money like currently. Some people think I don't okay, feel free to disagree or agree. I personally don't necessarily agree with this, but there is some merit in some people think that it's better to enjoy life while you're younger versus when you're older, right? Like you might not be as healthy as you are now by the time you they retire, right? Like even if you fire, you could end up like something could go wrong in your life in the future that prevents you from seeing the world. You might get in a free accident and be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, right? Hypothetically speaking, it's hard to say. It's hard to plan your life out definitively, you know. So in that regard, you know, there's some value in living in the moment and taking time to enjoy an experience and indulge yourself in that regard. I think, you know, I think it's very very hard to live a 100% disciplined life like the one you described. But the value there is obviously you achieve this like total autonomy over your life and you know you have more freedom, but that freedom doesn't mean the same for everyone.
Yeah, the thing I keep on coming back to is this idea of like what people call it the hedonic treadmill, which is that like it's good to indulge like every
Hedonistic
now and then.
treadmill or hedonic?
Yeah, I mean it's
Same
same
thing.
thing. Yeah, hedonic treadmill, yeah, hedonic I think. But yeah, like so the idea is basically like, but the thing is if you do it, if you indulge enough, it gets set as the default, and you actually don't get as much enjoyment out of it anymore. Um, and then so that you need to kind of reset it, right? Yeah, so like I'm totally fine with indulging, like kind of
Yeah,
every now
and
and then,
that's why
rather
I
than
said that I want to
being
make
constant.
like you know what you described as my default, and that way you know when I do go to a restaurant, it's gonna be like an occasion thing, right? Like it's like a oh like this is something I haven't done in a while, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard, you end up with the variety that you said you need in life as well. Because just because you start doing things yourself doesn't mean you achieve variety, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm like just a strong advocate for this kind of because I find it, yeah, like it kind of really removes that like component of the hedonic treadmill and gives you freedom, right? So yeah,
So what's hedonic?
It's like
it's kind of
indulging
means like
yourself,
in
right? Like consumption, like entertainment, you know, consumerism. It's just like indulging yourself in materialistic or there's a better word for this, but you know, it's like
yeah, I
if
think
you
indulgence is a good word.
yeah
Yeah, like it's just all around pleasure, right?
yeah pleasure, earthly pleasures.
I see. Just do everything in moderation.
No, I think Tony's trying to say you should like not rely on these things. Period. Right, and your source of um, satisfaction in life should come from um, other means like doing things yourself or just self improvement. Right, like
It's the idea of like self-fulfillment over pleasure, right? Like I think when people talk about like how to make oneself happy, I think a lot of times the debate comes down to basically like two different sides, which is one is on like fulfillment, and the other side is on like pleasure, right? So the pleasure side would be like food, sex, uh, whatever else I guess you can think of, and then the fulfillment side is like even if life is tough, right? Even if you go through hardship, they can still be happy in the sense that you feel fulfilled, right? Let's say you're doing something really challenging, right? Or is that something that brings you a lot of meaning? Like you're, you know, if you're into helping people, you're helping people. If you're into building something, you're building something, something like that, right?
Mm.
Yeah. I read a book maybe like a month or two ago called what do you call it? Man's Search for Meaning. Have you heard of it? But like Frankl something. It's like a guy who went through I think he was a neurologist or a psychiatrist who went through the concentration camps,
mm-hmm.
and he kind of described how like even in the concentration camps he found that people could be happy, right? Because of the idea of fulfillment, because of the idea of having a purpose. Like when people are looking forward to like being liberated, for example, or people uh, still help, like showing their humanity by helping their inmates and stuff like that, right? So you, despite the fact that the actual camp life was difficult, that in like every situation, people kind of reset themselves into that environment, right? So let's say you live a super lavish life, you kind of default yourself into that. Like it's like hedonic treadmill, right? Like your body sets that as the default, and so like pleasure only occurs when something, you know, differs positively from the default, right? So you need something even more in lifestyle, right? And so you can find yourself having any circumstance, for example, like even in that concentration camp, because you kind of reset yourself to that new normal, and so everything that deviated from that positively still made you happy, right? He was talking about people like if you found yourself, I don't remember exactly, you know, if you found yourself to be part of this one working group that, you know, did less work than the other groups, right? They found themselves enjoying that. Or like, you know, you got some food that was extra to what you normally got. People enjoyed that, right? And so what I kind of like, the way I kind of see it is sort of like, you want to avoid things that break you, like health wise, right? Because that really deters you from enjoying things. Like you can get used to that, but that really that sets a limitation, right? But as long as you're not breaking yourself, right? As long as you're still healthy, right, and meeting your basic needs, then it's sort of like, for me, living a pretty, I guess, like minimalistic or Spartan life, kind of, it's like enjoyable.
Yeah, I totally get that, and like even in personal life, like you can see the effect of what you just described happening. Okay, like a wholesome example would be like working out, right? Like if you haven't worked out in a while, then your body's not going to be accustomed to the weights that you were working out before. You have to build it back up, right? Your new baseline is going to be much lower than what it was when you were working out. Um, and so, did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that?
Thump?
No.
I heard a thump.
Yeah.
Did Alexa come to life?
That's kind of scary. Anyways, what was I gonna say? Okay, so I totally agree with that, and I totally understand the value of removing yourself from these pleasures to reset the baseline, so that you can find more enjoyment and fulfillment in life with less, right? Um, Let me propose to you a scenario. What if, let's say you had the option between like a no frills, you know, rundown one bedroom apartment or a
Sounds
giant,
like where I'm living right now.
or like a giant mansion that's, you know, super luxurious, super comfortable, got your own butlers and maids and whatever, and you didn't have to pay for either of them. Which one would you choose?
Imagine that, right? Don't have to pay for it.
It depends on a few more factors for me, because it's like I don't really use, if I had to like pay extra property tax or like clean up and whatever.
But you don't have to pay for it. That was
Okay, so like
money's not a thing.
so I would probably take the more. Yeah, take the mansion.
So, would you say in the end then this money is the main resource that you're trying to minimize, right? It's not so much enjoyment. It's not so much your earthly enjoyments, your hedonism. It's the fact that these things come with a cost. Like indulging yourself
Yeah,
in our society
absolutely.
comes with a cost.
Like if I had infinite money, I just do whatever, right? As long
Right.
as it doesn't, you know, affect my health.
Rough
Like
you.
you know, like I still wouldn't eat fried chicken all, for example.
Right, right. So health things aside, like you would be okay with yeah, like other forms of entertainment regardless, is if there was like infinite, like if the resource was free essentially, right?
Yeah, I think the trade-off you're really making is not necessarily hassle. So the hassle of working, but like the hassle, not necessarily working.
Sorry, I think you cut out a bit at the beginning of that sentence. So me and Gordon were like, well,
Okay, sorry. Yeah, there's more like the what you're minimizing is not necessarily.
Oh shit! It happened again.
Man, are you just
It-
censoring yourself or what?
It's happening a little more often right now. Yeah, you probably just your internet's probably. Dude, you can't trust your ISPs, bro. How much you paying for
I
that?
knew it, man. I fucking knew it. We only have 2 ISPs.
Dude, it's time to get on that
my-
Starlink, man. Where's Elon's?
I think my fiance actually met someone awesome. Like he's somewhere rural in Alberta, I think.
He's already on Starlink.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's pretty sick. I respect that. Yeah.
I think she said it was quite expensive though.
It is. But then you're paying for that speed like anywhere in the world, right? That's the idea.
True.
Maybe right now it's a little early though. I don't think they have enough satellites to support that right now.
Yeah, but what I was saying was like you don't want to.
Oh, God. You literally cut out right when you were like, what I was saying is you don't want to. That's literally what we heard.
Yo.
Every time you say that word, man.
You're definitely trolling us. he's just not saying shit on purpose.
Okay, what you're trying to minimize is actually like work, right? Like the and not necessarily work itself, because work can be quite enjoyable, but it's like all the surrounding things. It's like, I would love to do this thing, but you're telling me to show up exactly at this time, right? You're changing your projects on me. I don't get autonomy over what I'm doing, right? I think that's really the thing you want to minimize.
Yeah. So that's basically why I wanted to clarify with you is I wanted to know if, you are against the concept of indulging yourself in general, or because the trade-off was that it would cost money, which comes back to impacting your freedom, right? Your financial independence. So
Yeah, I think it comes down to
it's good to know where your priorities lie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other aspect of though I think is in reality, I think the thing is none of us really have infinite money to play with, to be on that hedonic treadmill forever, right? And
Of
also,
course.
And also, I think a lifestyle built around that is really hard to get that other aspect, right, which is the fulfillment, right? Like if your whole life is just trying to get as much pleasure as possible, I think that's actually really difficult to maximize that other aspect. So I think it's pretty. I think so. From my position, at least, right, the easiest way to maximize it, to maximize both, is sort of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, like totally not against enjoyment.
Yeah.
You get enjoyment for free at literally no cost, right? Like,
but that's what I'm saying. Is I think everybody subconsciously makes that choice between indulging yourself and financial constraints. It's just everybody has a bar of like how much they're willing to spend to indulge themselves, right? So I think you're on one end of the spectrum where you want to minimize as much spending as possible right now, whereas there are some people who live paycheck to paycheck, right?
Yeah, and I actually think that it's because they're not aware of the concept of financial independence.
I agree with that.
Like,
yeah.
I think if they fully understood the math and what it entails, I think most people would come.
But some people also
I think it's the idea that. Sorry, go ahead. I couldn't really do.
Like some people just can't save money either. Say like a single mom in like a really poor neighborhood, like she just grew up in a bad environment, so like things were against her, she couldn't get an education, so she has like a part-time job, has to support a kid. Like in COVID times, like it'd be very hard to not live paycheck to paycheck, right? So it's just
Tony's
I'm actually not.
Tony's like, shouldn't have had kids, bro. That's not very fire of you.
No, yeah, I actually don't think that's necessarily true. So, yeah, like, because you get financial support. Like, maybe it's very minimal, but I actually think they probably still are able to save some. The reason for that is there are so many, like, not to minimize any of, like, the problems that they're dealing with, right? But they do have a lot of supports financially, right? And even if you're able to get, like, a job that pays minimum wage. Like, what is minimum wage in Alberta right now? $15 yet? I think it's 15 yet now, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so that's more than $30,000 a year if you're right. And so if you can get financial support to put your kid in daycare, right? And then work full time. $30,000 is more than enough for an adult and a kid. So like for reference, right? Like my fiance and I, we live on like less than $25,000 a year, right? And like I think we're living quite well. Like we buy any like grocery that we want, you know. I kind of like whatever I kind of want to buy, I do buy. It's just most stuff I just don't feel like it's needed for me. So I think like I think it's possible. Like I think it's really tough in that situation, obviously, but I still think it's possible, right? And you can eventually get out of that situation with all the support that's out there and stuff. I think part of the reason is people aren't. I think when you believe that it's not, it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I think a lot of people would, if like I think if I were to tell most people that like you know we live on like quite a low budget, right? Like they'd be like, "What? That doesn't sound possible or feasible, or whatever," right? But honestly, it is. It didn't even take that much trouble, to be fair. And like we can cut down even more, right? Like for example, like we're paying for like car insurance on this car that we barely use. Like I don't even know why we don't just sell this car, right? To be honest. And we can totally downsize into an even cheaper place that we live in. Like we live, like I joked to Gordon before that we live on the section of like all these different communities, right? On one end we've got like like we're really close to downtown. We got this like really shady area, and then on our other side is like the richest neighborhood in the city, right? But our property cost is like higher than what it would be if we chose to live somewhere else, right? We live here because it's kind of close to her work, right? And like honestly, like location wise, it's not that. We're so close to downtown. We're like close to the university and close to the River Valley and everything. So I definitely think it's possible down. Like that's not to minimize how difficult it is. Like in that situation, I think if you were in that situation, you were probably never taught, how to save money, right? You're probably in a situation where it's just so much easier to just buy like high calorie food and eat McDonald's and whatever, which costs more than if you just buy your groceries and then kind of cook. Like for example, one thing I think this mentioned on All In podcast to Jack at one point. I think Shama said that like for example, rich people eat fish and like poor people eat beef, and fish costs less than beef, right? And fish is healthier than beef. Like it's just something I think like, I don't know what drives it. Like part of it's probably like advertising targeted, probably it's like yeast of like cooking and whatever. But yeah.
Well, fish doesn't cost less than beef in restaurants.
Yeah, but grocery wise, it costs less.
Yeah, but I think that drives the perception that it's like a luxury food.
Yeah, like yeah.
Did your
But
parents
I guess
tell
I
you?
was just making an argument that it's possible. It's
You cut out too,
difficult in
Gordon.
that
Oh, sorry.
Maybe this whole call is bugged.
Didn't your parents ever tell you that fish makes you smarter when you eat it?
Yeah.
Wait, really? How come I never got this?
Really? My mom was always like, "Yo, you know why I'm so smart? Because I ate the fish brain every time."
Yeah.
Like she was like, "Yo, give me that shit."
You want me to eat so much fish because of that?
Is that why you guys are smarter than me? It's okay. I'm eating fish now. I'm trying to catch up. Like like I think I was talking about the Missing Money Mustache blog, Jack, right? Like I think that's the thing that really opened up my mind. Was like, at one point I was like eating out so much and whatever, like I was spending like $1,000 a month, right? And like I did not like this. I think I was like still living with my parents, right? This is like I think after I just graduated college and came back. Like I was spending $1,000 a month. Like I was paying no rent, right? I was not like grocery shopping. Like where the fuck is this money even going? And then when I track down my expenses and cutting shit out, right? I'm just like, okay, like actually, like you can cut down your spending by so much. Like right now, for example, I still pay for this thing that I don't need, which is Netflix, because I'm paying it for my parents and for like my fiance's parents, right? Which I don't even use. And at one point, I was paying for Gordon to watch Friends. Like I mean, like finally one day, be like, okay, I want to watch some Netflix. We go on, they're like, nope, you cannot watch it because someone else is watching. And they're
Oh
like, yo,
my
Gordon,
god, that's
I'm
so
like, oh
funny.
yeah, I'm on my 20th episode of Friends this week, Um, but yeah, like you can just cut down on shit like so much. It's absolutely insane.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
If you actually put in the effort, yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. Like there's a lot of consumption that we do is definitely in excess, and it wouldn't hurt to trim the fat a little bit. Um, yeah, I think we can
Yeah,
all do
like
that. I can definitely cut down on more stuff.
yeah, like it's just like because the extra spending I was doing didn't make me any happier anyways,
Hmm.
right? Like for example, like the things that make me happy, hang out with friends, right? Like that mostly is free, right? And like playing sports, working out, right? A lot of that can be done for free or very cheap, right? Like what was all this other jazz I was doing, right? It didn't even make me any happier, right? Like, um, so I really like the way that Mr. Anonymous puts it, and like it really puts things into perspective, right? This idea of like, okay, instead of spending your money on these things, and by all means, spend on the things that you need. Like for example, my friends invite me to go eat out, I will go eat out with them, right? Nothing to do with the food itself, but just hang out with people,
Yep,
right?
agreed.
But
Agreed.
like if it's like, am I gonna go eat out myself? Very rarely, unless I'm super lazy, right? I think since the pandemic, I think I ate out like 4 times maybe, or 5 times, and once was with friends. Um, and yeah, because when I think about it, it's like, okay, imagine a life where you do not you can wake up, right? Imagine a life where you can sleep whenever the fuck you want, right? And not having to answer to a boss. Like to me, all those things would improve my well-being so much more than eating out or you know things like that, right? Like indulgences, right? And so that's why I put such a premium on that. And maybe some people don't, but I come down philosophically to the idea that removing a negative from your life makes you happier than adding a positive pleasure, right? Because like like when you add on positive pleasure, unless you're able to sustain that every single day, right? Like you get reset to that, and then like it just doesn't really make much of a difference in the long run. But if you can remove the negative things, like having to wake up a certain time, having to go to sleep, having a boss to answer to, having someone get angry at you, customer, or whether it's your boss, or having all these things changed on you and being constrained in all these ways, right? Like to me, that's a much bigger effect on my well-being than these other things that I was doing. Yeah, like $1,000 a month, the way I was spending it, like fucking crazy. But like I don't even think it's that out of the ordinary for like college kids.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I probably hit that number too.
Definitely
Yeah,
never
because
hit
right
that.
now I spend like, I mean, like right now I spend about $1,000 a month, right? But like that's paying for rent, groceries, and like all these other, right? Like before, like there's none of that. Like imagine if I paid for all that stuff, right? Like we're like, like 2-3K. So no wonder people think that they need so much money to reach financial independence, right? Like I think like when we talk about financial independence with Michael, right? He was like, oh yeah, I think he's like 4 mil or something. And I was like,
Poor Phil.
holy bananas. Like, like four, it might have been even more. I don't quite remember, but it was quite a high. It was definitely many multiple high
Oh,
number. But when you look at the 25, when you look at like the percent rule, right? Like kind of the 25 rule on the inverse, that is what? That is spending 160K a year. Like that 4 mil in savings, right? With a 4% rule sustains 160K worth of spending a year. I'm like, I just don't think I can find enough things to spend that money on to reach that number. You know what I mean? Like I would have a hard time getting to that spending.
I think you can if you wanted to.
Like, yeah, I feel like it's not hard to find things to spend money. There's so many things you can spend your money on. You know, that's the whole point of this society.
Hire a
Yeah,
personal chef to cook for you every day.
I
That's
think
gotta
the
be
thing
quite
is
rich.
like
Just go on Amazon
I think
every
the
day.
thing is
Just
like
buy something.
spending that money on something that would actually make my life better, right. If I clarify that way, it becomes hard to find ways to spend that money, right? Because I feel like even the Spartan way, not even that Spartan way, but kind of like the somewhat frugal way that I live now, right? Like pretty good, right? Like to let's say that amount of spending would be a 6x, right? For me to find enough things to improve to spend that much money on, right? To make my life actually better instead of just going on a hedonic treadmill, right? It's tough.
Do you think you'll like lifestyle creep? You know, when you make more money, you just kind of start spending more money because you don't make that much right now, so you kind of live
Yeah,
that
that
frugal lifestyle.
that has been like a huge thing I think that's talked about with doctors especially is they talk about the lifestyle creep where like you start making attending money, right? And then like people just all of a sudden start spending all this money, right? I think that probably wouldn't happen to me, and the reason for that is because I've been mindful about this from the beginning, right? And like yeah, like I've been mindful about it from the beginning, so I'm not just spending money, willy-nilly because other people spend it or because it's possible or something, right? Like I try to be pretty mindful about like why I'm spending this money and whether or not it's actually worth it. So probably wouldn't happen to me as much, but I definitely think that having a kid is going to increase the cost, right? So in our minds, we've kind of like upped our number to like $40,000, like budget wise, a year, for when we have a kid, and that is like a 15K increase per year, right? Like, which is more than what each of us spend right now, and like so we might even be overestimating it, right? Especially if um, you know, one of us stays home to take care of the kid, right? That cuts down on a lot of the cost. Um, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I don't really have any more on anything at this point. Yeah, that was all. I mean, actually, I knew all that before. That was not new to me.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah.
Oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Warren.
I'm just
Man, it's like
surprised
so
you gave
dark
me an
now.
invite.
What's up?
I was surprised you asked me.
Oh yeah, Tony, I was gonna say it was super bright on your end, and now it looks
Yeah.
like if you look at the beginning of the recording to now, it's literally night and day, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Gordon's side too, right? Like when
Well,
we
Gordon's
like,
side went from dark to darker. Okay.
Oh, okay. I didn't think the call would go on for this long. So I was like, oh, 7 to 8? Yeah, the sun should still be up. And then the sun set, we kept going like, oh shit, man, should I turn on the lights?
I was like, dude, Gordon lives in a fucking dungeon, man. That was the first thing I thought when I hopped on. I was like, I see the sunlight, and it's like the blinds are fully closed and no lights are on. It's just like barely creeping through.
Oh, there's only a window in front of me.
Oh, okay, it's like too blinding. Wait, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Tony's setup's the exact same right now. I'm pretty sure his window's directly in front of him. That's why it was so bright
Yeah.
earlier.
natural daylight. It's good lighting.
Yeah, if you
Like,
have a good monitor screen, then it works out pretty well. But sometimes
Yeah,
it makes
do
it
a
hard
lot
to
of, like-
see.
Yeah. Do a lot of like group work, right? And so like I realized before that I just look super shady. Like
Oh yeah, having good lighting really helps.
Oriented the other way.
Yeah. Plus, if you ever start at OnlyFans, it's gonna be really helpful to have that strong lighting.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, if you're looking for another way to fire, dude, OnlyFans. Let's talk about that, man. Like, that's the business right there, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to give us some advice?
You should
advice.
find a fetish. It's
Advice.
definitely.
Be a girl. Sell feet pics. Sell used underwear. Retire early.
I heard guys can sell feet pics because I can't tell.
Guys. Oh my god.
No, not if
Dude,
you have hairy
They
feet.
can
though.
definitely tell on my move.
Dude, if you shave that, yeah, some guys have pretty legs.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's true actually. If you shave it and everything, makeup on it.
You're considering this, aren't you?
Never turn down an opportunity, Jack.